right, morning everybody. Good to see you, let's begin. We're gonna operate from half guard today, but we're gonna build up out of our side control. I've been forced to work from this position a bit lately and it just reminded me how useful it is. So we're down here and he's gonna have a cross face and an underhook, so things are looking pretty bad. We're gonna frame the near side hip and we're gonna bring our hand in here under the armpit and we're gonna hip out slightly. I'm not even trying to win the battle of the hip for a regain. So he can run his hip to me, that's fine. All I want to get to is this. Once my hand gets here, I start to just pull him overhead as I tuck my jaw and then I widen my elbow. And now I don't want to just pull him and he steps into mount, that would be terrible. So what I do here is I try to keep connection with his leg as I lift him high and then I whip over onto my side and I get to here. So I get into this tight waist type position. Now from here, we're gonna see where we go to. What normally happens is he starts to top spin around the top of me here because and starts to go around the top of my head, leaving an isolated arm or spinning behind me. So we don't want to stay here for too long. So if we can use our leg to capture his lower leg, this is great. So I look for my heel to get just inside his ankle and I pull back and then I just lock. Now I'm always aware that from this position, if my top knee is very low, that Jake could easily hit a little back step and now he's got my leg. So let's just keep this in mind. So the whole time I'm kind of keeping my knee kind of pointed at his tailbone so that I don't allow him to easily back step. So this is a little harder for him. So I back heel and then this bottom knee pushes forward and I start to put pressure through the side of his knee. So I'm back heeling here and then it's nearly like I'm scooting under him here. And this will put a bit of tension through Jake's knee. So if Jake tries to square up to me and cross face me and smash me here, do that, Jake. Is that fairly hard?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it puts pressure through his knee. So this is important. If I don't have pressure through Jake's knee, he can start to square up and smash me here. So it's a small detail, but it makes a big difference. So I'm kind of pushing my hip in and I'm back heeling and widening my knee to create this tension. Then I'm gonna go searching for a scoop. I'm gonna look to try and go elbow deep and I'm gonna start to try and bring his knees till they're both in line with each other. At this stage, Jake's in trouble. His whizzer is the only thing stopping me going to his back. If his whizzer is out already, we're gonna come up on him. But we're gonna assume your partner doesn't want that to happen and he keeps his whizzer in. So we've got tight waist, scoop, I pull everything in to myself like I'm doing a lat row, and then I'm just gonna scoot underneath him. And it doesn't matter how many scoots it takes, I'm gonna scoot till I get to that point where his hips are now falling off the side of me. If you try to get on top when he's still about here, and they're not over to this side, they can whip back over on top and it can start to get a bit messy. So we get to a point where I feel like, okay, his hips are falling. Now I take my foot in the mat and I just make a small bridge and I can easily knock him over here and I glue my head down here like so. We're then gonna climb our arm out of the scoop and over the leg, and then we're just gonna start to scissor, freeing our leg from the grip, and now we're on top in side control. Now the beauty of this for a little drill here is that now Jake can practice on me. So I've got a cross face and underhook. He pummels in under the armpit. He lifts me high. My whizzer goes in because I don't like the idea of getting my back taken. He goes searching for my lower leg. He goes tight waist, and he's just gonna take the time to practice getting that tension in my knee. I don't aggressively turn in, you can hurt yourself, but he's gonna practice putting pressure in the side of my knee and back heeling, so I should feel like it's kind of hard for me to move too much. He then pulls both my knees in so they align with each other. He then takes a series of hip escapes or reverse hip escapes until I fall over the top. And then from here, he's gonna exchange this over. So he's pinning my hip, he's gonna free his leg, and he's gonna go to side control. Get a partner, let's give it a go. We're down here, we got to the tight waist. We're in a side control position. I go searching for his ankle and it walks away from me and I can't get to it. This is gonna be a pain in the ass. We're gonna scoot towards him and continue to try to at least make him have to work to step over my head. If I need to, I can even frame up on his quadricep. What I don't want to happen is that he puts a cross face in and starts to smash me. So if you ever feel that happening, tuck your chin and pull weight forward onto his hand. So when Jake goes looking for the cross face, he effectively doesn't have a posting hand. So you can always pull him and he'll want to post or else he'll fall over. Okay, if you really need to, you could self-frame. But what I'm gonna go to, if I can't use my leg to capture the lower leg, I'm gonna scoot, I'm gonna come out of my tight waist and go under his glute. I'm just gonna weave in here with a straight arm and just false grip on the front of the shin. So all I'm doing is switching from the tight waist to here, and I effectively just straighten my arm. So this is surprisingly strong. You can kind of keep him stuck in position. If Jake tries to sprawl out of this, it's not that easy. And while he's trying to do that, I just scoot back in and I just feed back into my position. And then we go back to what we just looked at before. So all we're going to add is this idea that Jake's trying to walk around. If he tries to cross face me, I don't allow this to happen. This will be kind of shit. So as he tries to put that in, I lift him and make him post. And I'm going to switch and I'm going to start to look at weaving down here on this single position. As he tries to walk away, it should be kind of hard. And then I can look at wrapping this back up. And then we go back into taking our men over. Let's give it a go. Now let's look at what's going to happen down here. Is you're going to take underhooks and you're going to get guys who don't just try and pin you, but they try to start to counter. And a common counter is he goes into a Dar strangle. So he feeds his arm in the overhook because he's already putting his arm in there anyway. So he puts this overhook in and then he starts to look at trying to compress your head, lock to his bicep, and now you're starting to get Dar strangled. So let's have a think about this. What he wants for a DARS is he wants my arm to be compressed up here so he can lock up around this area here. So our job is to make that as big as possible. So what we want to do as he starts to feed in here is we kind of pull our elbow back towards his armpit. This will retract his arm a fair bit. So I pull back towards the armpit as I scoot in and kind of open up my neck here. So now when he goes to feed to that DARS, it's quite difficult. He wants to, and normally needs to drop. See, he had to drop his shoulder slightly underneath my armpit. So that's what he wants. And as he tries to do that, I try to open everything up and I go back into my tight waist and we can normally whip back in here. Now, if he wants to continue to go to that DARS, you'll normally get yourself a sweep because he's kind of putting himself out of position. Now, what we don't want is our head to start to get compressed down here. If this starts to happen, things are going worse. I'm going to give you one option here that I've been playing around with, is that as he starts to do this and you feel that things are going bad and you can't pull back, you're like, shit, this is going bad. We're going to walk our feet away. So you can see a gap. Try not to touch your penis there. You can see a gap out here. I'm basically going to look for that gap and poke my head out there. So we're over here. He's starting to compress and I'm feeling like shit's going bad. So I'm going to take my head all the way through. So I get to this position. And then I'm going to take my feet and I'm going to pendulum down towards the mat and start to come up. Normally Jake will roll through. Then we can start to come into top. Oh, that was impressive. He'll come into top position. So let's see here again. Option one was we're down here. He starts to feed. I just open everything up and then we go back. Option two, he starts to feed the dust and shit's going bad. So I'm actually going to hip escape away. I take everything out here and I pull back until my head gets free of his body. Now I hit a pendulum and I start to look into him and then I start to come up into top position. Let's give it a go. What's going to start to happen is when he starts to go into these attacking sequences, once you start to defend the DARS and open your neck, if he wants to continue to go to strangles, he'll then take his left arm in this case and start to go to guillotines. Okay, so this is going to be the game. Now with the guillotine, I'm not too stressed about it. I'm going to bring my hand up here and grab on his thumb line if I feel the guillotine coming in. And I'm just going to try to open everything back out and see whether I can get back into what we were doing before and just boot back through to this sweeping series. So that's kind of always the pathway we're going back to. But if he starts to go and he makes a centerline shift and he starts to really get high here, this is where I'm starting to worry. So just be aware of this. If I feel this start to happen, I've got to get this hand and pull it back down or roll with it and see whether we roll through here and we normally end up in positions like this. Now if I stay here, Jake could heist over and then do something like what Curtis got done with by Isaac Michelle at trials. So we don't want that to happen. I didn't want to mention it's a very specific position. So let's go again. So I defend the DARS, so he starts to go to the guillotine. I hand fight. If I can do this and reboot, great. If he goes onto his hip and throws through, and I'm going to start to follow with him, I'm going to try and stay on this leg. Now what I'm going to do here, if my head stays out on this side of the ribs, I'm in a bit of trouble. So what I'm going to look at doing is hand fighting. I'm going to come up to my knees. I'm going to keep his legs so that he can't put me in guard, and I'm going to try to slip my head back inside the center of his chest, like this, and then walk back in the top position. What I'm not doing is just driving up into the far hip. This is going to get you into trouble on the guillotine, especially if he's in a high position. You're going to start to get strangled here. So I'm going to start to pull down on the hand, and my head comes down and away. I'm trying to put my head in the center of the body. So when I come up here, his guillotine disappears. So this is probably will make more sense to the more advanced guys, and for the other people, it might be a bit tricky, but let's just cycle through it. So we go here, he goes to Das, I defend the Das, so he switches to my open neck, I hand fight, and I reboot. He starts to switch into that high elbow position. I'm going to roll with him here. I'm going to tuck my head and start to come into top position. Let's go. Addressed a kind of basic direction we're going, and then we've addressed what if they start to counter with some strangles, which is going to be very common. Now let's look at this idea of starting to wrestle out on this guy. So he blocks in at the hip here and puts in the overhook, and we're trying to get into the leg and we're having a hard time there. So we can't just capture it and go into our half guard. So we're just going to keep scooting towards him, and we're going to go back into that weave we looked at before. So from this weave position, we're going to start to now wrestle up. So from here, I'm going to start to scissor myself over towards my belly, start to build height here. So I need to get into this sort of wrestling type position. But at this stage, it's still going to be a battle. He's going to be whizzing, trying to put me back flat, and I'm going to be trying to work from here. So my next job that's quite important is to walk. So because I have this weaved, and Jake will normally be sprawling this leg, it won't, yeah, it'll probably, you're down and away probably. Yeah, it'll be probably something like this. This is pretty common. I'm gonna have to walk, trying to drive my shoulder behind the hamstring. And as soon as your knee is close enough to get inside his ankle, you've got to take that. That's sort of the demarcation line of you winning this battle. So here, we're still having a pretty big fight here. But I start to walk, and as soon as I can get this in here, this is good. Now I'm going to drop my shoulder behind the hamstring, and I come out of the calf and go in front of the knee. And then my second hand is going to go looking for the shin. And I'm just going to start driving forward, and then I'm going to shelf his leg up on top of my hip. Once I get to here, I'm going to go elbow deep. Notice I'm below his ass, not above. And then I'm going to run him down and just start to put him down on the mat. So again, we're here. I come in here and I weave. I start to wrestle up, and we start to get into this battle, and we're fighting away. I walk till my knee hits the mat. I go looking for the front of the quadricep, my shoulder's in the hammy, and I start to put his shoelaces up on my hip. And then I exchange, and then we run him down. Let's give it a go.